The atmosphere inside Loftus Versfeld was already electric as the reigning world champions looked determined to impose themselves from the very first whistle. Every possession carried purpose, every collision echoed around the stadium, and every supporter sensed that another memorable chapter in South African rugby was about to unfold. After Embrose Papier crossed for the opening try and Handré Pollard calmly added the conversion, the Springboks had taken an early 7-0 lead over Scotland, but few could have predicted that one of the most debated moments of the entire contest would arrive immediately from the restart. What initially appeared to be an impressive piece of athletic skill quickly evolved into a talking point that would dominate discussions long after the final whistle. It became the kind of incident that reminds everyone why rugby remains one of the most technically complex sports in the world, where even a split-second decision can influence not only a single phase of play but also the direction of an entire match. The restart itself looked routine at first glance. Scotland launched the ball deep, hoping to apply immediate pressure and perhaps force an error from the defending world champions. Instead, Cobus Wiese positioned himself perfectly beneath the descending kick. Timing his jump with precision, he rose confidently into the air, supported by teammate Boan, whose responsibility was to ensure that the lock could safely contest possession. Lifting players during lineouts is a familiar part of rugby, and supporters have become accustomed to seeing forwards elevated high above the ground to secure clean possession. Yet this situation unfolded differently from what players, coaches, referees, and fans usually expect. Rather than immediately lowering Wiese after he caught the ball, Venter continued carrying him forward while he remained elevated above shoulder height. For just a brief moment, the image looked unusual, almost frozen in time, as Wiese travelled through space still supported by his teammate. That small delay changed everything. Scottish defenders instinctively hesitated because rugby's laws are very clear about protecting players in the air. Any defender who makes dangerous contact with a player who has not yet safely returned to the ground risks conceding a penalty and possibly receiving a yellow or even a red card. In modern rugby, player welfare is treated as the highest priority, meaning defenders are constantly reminded to avoid unnecessary contact with airborne opponents. That hesitation from the visitors created valuable space. By the time Wiese was safely back on the ground, the defensive line had lost precious momentum. Instead of immediately facing a tackle, he accelerated through the gap before delivering an intelligent offload to Paul de Villiers, who surged deep into Scottish territory. The momentum continued building phase after phase as the Springboks recycled possession with the patience and accuracy that has become a trademark of their game under Rassie Erasmus. Eventually the sustained pressure proved too much for Scotland, allowing Evan Roos to crash over for another try that stretched the advantage to 14-0. At that stage of the contest, many supporters simply admired the efficiency of South Africa's attack. The sequence looked like another example of the world champions combining physical dominance with quick decision-making. Social media filled with praise for the composure shown by the home side, while commentators highlighted the importance of securing clean restart possession. Yet as often happens in elite rugby, slow-motion replays began revealing details that were almost impossible to appreciate at full speed. Every replay prompted new questions. Had everything been legal? Should play have continued uninterrupted? Or had an infringement occurred before the attack even properly began? Those questions gained even greater significance after respected former international referee Nigel Owens shared his interpretation during the latest edition of World Rugby's Whistle Watch. Few figures in rugby command the level of respect that Owens enjoys. Across an outstanding refereeing career spanning countless international tests, 6 Nations encounters, Rugby Championship fixtures, and a Rugby World Cup final, he developed a reputation for calm decision-making, excellent communication, and a deep understanding of rugby's increasingly detailed law book. Even after retiring from active officiating, his opinions continue carrying enormous weight because they focus on education rather than criticism. Discussing the incident, Owens carefully explained why the situation should not simply be labeled as obstruction. Many supporters immediately assumed obstruction laws were relevant because defenders appeared unable to reach the ball carrier. However, Owens clarified that obstruction usually involves teammates blocking defenders while running in front of the ball carrier. In this case, he argued, something different had occurred entirely. The issue was not traditional obstruction but rather an action that unintentionally prevented defenders from legally contesting possession because the player remained airborne while being moved forward. His explanation highlighted one of rugby's most fascinating realities. The laws often work together rather than independently. A movement can remain outside the formal definition of obstruction while still becoming illegal because it interferes with another law designed to protect player safety. According to Owens, defenders found themselves trapped in an impossible situation. If they attempted to tackle Wiese while he was still being carried, they risked conceding a penalty for dangerous contact with a player in the air. If they waited, the attacking team gained valuable meters without genuine defensive pressure. In either scenario, the balance between attack and defense had been unfairly altered. Watching the replay again through that lens made the hesitation from the Scottish players much easier to understand. One defender appeared ready to advance before quickly pulling back, almost instinctively recognizing the danger of making contact. Another slowed his approach entirely. Those brief pauses may have lasted only fractions of a second, but at international level, fractions of a second often separate dominant defensive sets from line breaks that change matches. Elite players react automatically to years of coaching. Repeatedly emphasizes avoiding dangerous aerial challenges. The hesitation was therefore understandable rather than accidental. According to Owens, that hesitation itself became evidence that the attacking movement had crossed an important legal boundary. If defenders are effectively prevented from making a legal tackle because of the attacker's actions, then the contest is no longer balanced. Rugby has always celebrated physical contests, but it equally demands fairness between both sides. Every breakdown, scrum, line-out, and aerial contest is governed by laws intended to provide each team with a genuine opportunity to compete. Once one side loses that opportunity through an illegal action, referees are expected to intervene. The experienced former referee explained that there would have been no issue if Boan had simply lifted Cobus Wiese, allowed him to secure possession, and immediately returned him safely to the ground. That sequence occurs regularly during restart receptions across professional rugby. The problem, in Owens' view, emerged because the supporting player continued travelling forward before lowering his teammate. Those extra steps fundamentally changed the nature of the contest. Instead of merely assisting with catching the ball, the support effectively transported the ball carrier beyond the point where defenders could realistically challenge. Had the infringement been identified in real time, Owens believed the correct outcome would have been a penalty awarded to Scotland, ending the attack before it gathered momentum. Consequently, the later try scored by Evan Roos would never have stood because the attacking movement itself should already have been stopped. It was a significant opinion, not because it questioned the quality of South Africa's overall performance, but because it demonstrated how one overlooked detail can influence a scoreboard during elite international rugby. Even so, it is equally important to recognize the immense challenge facing match officials during games played at extraordinary speed. Referees, assistant referees, and television match officials process dozens of decisions every minute while monitoring player safety, offside lines, breakdown contests, foul play, and countless other technical aspects simultaneously. Many incidents become obvious only after repeated slow-motion analysis from multiple camera angles. What appears clear hours later inside a television studio is often far more difficult to identify in real time from ground level, surrounded by moving players and limited viewing angles. That reality explains why discussions like these continue shaping rugby's ongoing efforts to improve consistency, educate supporters, and ensure that the laws evolve alongside the modern game.